Good morning, everybody. So far, we've had on the list in reverse order the suspects, if you like, in the murder of Teresa. In our last equal place, we had Stephen Rendon. Then the last one we did was looking at the possibility of it being Edward Wayne Edwards or Kucharski's Aliens. But now we're going to start to get a little bit more serious. And one of the things that obviously has been discussed at great lengths within the Making a Murderer community is the question, is Teresa still alive? Because one of the four ways in which convictions can be overturned and proven to be false convictions, wrongful convictions, of course, is if a crime didn't occur in the first place. There was no victim. However, the bones do belong to somebody, and the suspicion amongst many people within the Making a Murder community is that those bones are actually those of a girl of similar age called Carmen Boutwell, who was, again, about 25 years old. Apparently she was known as a drug user and died on the Wednesday following the Monday, 2 days after Teresa disappeared. And it was, everything was taken care of by, I think it was Dave Remiker that took care of arranging her cremation. So that's always, it's always been a, one of those subjects that some people, think quite passionately about. Either way, some people are sort of, don't talk rubbish. How, of course it's Teresa. It's you're just a mad conspiracy theorist. But other people are very, very much in favour. Now, obviously, last Saturday I had the pleasure of speaking to Dr. Siltman, who is an expert when it comes to DNA. And he said quite categorically that it was a match with Teresa Halbach, the FBI test. So based on that evidence, yes, I would say that we've got a deceased Teresa Halbach. And of course, this revealing of Wiegert, part of the Bert and Ernie team, actually in one of his reports referring to a bloody blunt object. We don't know what that bloody blunt object is. Maybe it was quite a big lump of stick or a rock, or maybe, as some people have suggested, maybe it was like the tire wrench. Difficult to say. I mean, it's a bit vague, isn't it? A bloody blunt object. But one of the other problems with it's that people who support the idea that Teresa is still alive, what they have pointed out, of course, is that somebody has gone to the trouble of making sure that there were no teeth found with these cremains, and obviously lack of photographs that even prove that the cremains were ever in Stephen Avery's fire pit anyway. But the lack of teeth suggests the possibility that teeth were removed in order to hide the person's identity. And as you remember, some of you that watched the very first Mammothon, right at the end of the session, we had Henry on with the dude, and he pointed out that the one bit of truth that they said was Teresa's had actually grown in size. How does a cremated tooth grow in size? So it does, it just adds more fuel to the fire, if you forgive the pun. We've only got 40% of the bones anyway, and none from the torso, which is very, very surprising. as I say, it makes one think that somebody is trying to hide the identity of that person. Whereas, when you're trying to frame Steve for this murder, you wonder why would you make it so difficult to identify the victim? It would have been a lot easier if there'd have been no burning of bodies, wouldn't it? Anyway, so these are equal third last places, I would say. The Teresa still alive theory, which, if she is still alive, is joint third last. Teresa still alive, Mike Halbach. Most of you know my problems with what Mike Halbach said and did. The grieving process, he's asked, how are you coping? And he says, the grieving process could last days, weeks, years. Hopefully we'll find answers soon so that we can move on. And then, just as a side note, hopefully with Teresa still in our lives. So first of all, how does he know that Teresa has met her demise when she's only a missing person? And I know some of you will say, well, it's just a bit of a slip of the tongue. He didn't really mean to say that. Fine. But why not follow up? Why was there no follow-up questions about that? As I say, over here in the UK, we had a very infamous case, the Soham murders, Holly Wells, Jessica Chapman. And it was a slip by Maxine Carr when she referred to one of the girls that she'd had in class as she was a nice girl. That's when the police immediately realized that she knew more about their disappearance than she was letting on. And as I say, for most people, if you're going to say the grieving process could last years, days, weeks, years, you're going to attract some suspicion, as I've said all along. Had it been, for example, say, a member of the Avey family who had been, murdered, and Stephen also went missing, and somebody said to Steve, how are you doing? And he'd have said, oh, the grieving process could last years. You can bet your bottom dollar that the whole of the press and the investigation team would take that as an admission. So, as I say, he does say this grieving process could last days, weeks, years. Hopefully we'll find answers soon so that we can move on. The fact that these could be grieving for days, that does then lend itself to this theory that quiet. I'm trying to do a video. Sorry about that. Hey, come here. Yeah, it does seem very odd, doesn't it? Luna, quiet. It does seem very odd that he should be grieving for just days. And people have said, that it was this just his way of saying it. Fine, it might be, but it should have been investigated further, because that's a very, very strange thing to say, isn't it? And who deleted the voicemails? Well, we know that Ryan and Mike are as thick as thieves, and very, very strange that that he was able to get into the voicemails. In fairness, I would say that there have been these people who have looked at the whole situation of the Halbach's body language, and whilst some people have come forward and said, it looks very, very suspicious, I don't know that we can really use that as sort of evidence against somebody. I think this whole body language, reading of body language, it's fine once you know what the answer is, and then you can look back at how people were and point to that, bits of deception, the duper's delight and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think you can do it in order to sort of accuse somebody of something, because everybody reacts differently. But again, it just raises suspicion. What I always found very odd was that you've got Ken Kratz, who absolutely loves being the centre of attention, and absolutely loved doing any kind of press conference or anything to do with media. And yet, he would alternate, certainly during the trial, alternate with Mike Halbach. He would do the press conference one day, Mike Halbach do the next. Ken Kratz giving up his pride and joy. Very bizarre. Obviously, part of the reason for that is to make sure that he garners enough, garners a huge amount of sympathy for the for the situation. And yeah, other bizarre things that Mike has said, like, what if it turns out that the remains aren't Teresa? And he said, well, that would mess things up. So you're left wondering, well, could it be that he knows that Teresa has vanished in order simply to create a victim when there isn't one? Or does he know of her demise? Some people as well have suggested that there's a woman up in Canada whose name is also Teresa and advertises as a photographer. I'm not sure that even Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department would be daft enough, and Wisconsin daft enough to let Teresa Halbach simply move across the border and carry on doing photography under the name of Teresa. I do find that, obviously, Making a Murderer came along and exposed things, but I'm not sure about this. Is it Teresa St. Clair or St. Michelle or something like that? It's I know there was one or two people got very excited by this by this woman who is the same age that Teresa would be now, and has got certain sort of physical features which are similar. Apart from the fact that apparently there's a 3 or 4 inches in height difference, which kind of complicates things, doesn't it? But yes, let's put those in our sort of third place. Do I think that Teresa is still alive? I'd like to think so. I certainly would. That would be great. And Brendan has this dream, doesn't it? That Pete tells us about. Would I like her to be alive? Of course I would. We would all like that. It would solve the situation straight away. Unfortunately, probably she did meet an untimely, violent death at the back of her car, as you can tell by the amount of blood spatter on the back of the car, the cargo door. Now, do I think Mike Halbach did it? No, I don't think Mike Halbach murdered his sister. No matter how much he might have or might not liked her. And of course they are half brother and sister, because Karen's first husband was the brother of Cohen, Tim. Is it Tim Halbach? I can't remember all the names, but yeah, it was one of these situations you read about them in, for example, the Bible, the kinsman redeemer, where a woman is widowed, and then the brother of the deceased husband then takes over the duty of being husband, and they remarry. And it's, as I say, it's quite an old-fashioned idea, but still alive and well in Wisconsin. So as I say, Teresa and Mike are half-brother and sister. And again, there's been suspicion that the Halbachs have benefited hugely from a financial point of view. I think Tim Halbach is the older brother that's a lawyer, and he his rise through the ranks aroused a lot of suspicion with people who thought, this is a bit strange. You know, they've given him all these promotions. And you look at Mike Halbach, obviously quite high up with the Green Bay Packers. And so the suggestion was that these were incentives that were given to you know, the Halbachs and their dairy farm. Apparently was given loads and loads of subsidies, and is worth many, many millions. But I don't think Mike Halbach is the murderer. What I do think, though, is that, you know, in the sense that when you put two people away for life, you are burying them alive. I definitely think there is something very strange going on with you know, with Mike and Ryan in regards to framing Steve and Brendan. But anyway, as we go through, we'll come nearer and nearer to the number one suspect. So anyway, as I say, last place, Stephen Brendan. Second last place, Kucharski's Aliens and Edward Wayne Edwards. These are third last place. And as I say, things get more serious now, because there are some things that we simply can't explain at the moment. And maybe we won't be able to explain until Kathleen Zellner gets everything that she wants to tested. Yeah. Teresa's still alive. As I say, it's a theory that that there are people out there that point out the fact that, has it been proven quite categorically that the remains are those of Teresa? You know, the bizarre thing, of course, is that as far as Judge Angie is concerned, they could have been animal bones that were handed back to the Halbachs. Really? My goodness. And Mike Halbach, there's some very dodgy things that he said, and as I say, some people would sort of forgive that. They'd say, you know, it's the heat of the moment, it's the stress of the situation. But as I say, if the situation were that Steve and Avery had said the grieving process could last days, weeks, years, hopefully we'll have answers soon, and we can move on, hopefully, with whoever the victim was in our lives. If he'd have said that, yeah, he'd have been jumped on by all the reporters, and it would be taken, as I say, as an admission of guilt. Anyway, I do apologise for the dog. She does like the sound of her own voice. Not a bit like me, no. Anyway, catch you all soon. Take care. Bye for now.